All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to a brand new explainer where we're unpacking a seriously brilliant piece of storytelling. We're looking at a script that manages to cram a whole masterclass in psychology, suspense, and character dynamics into, get this, just 35 seconds. It's The Clever Hen and the Vain Fox Part 2. And what's so cool here is how it takes these classic fable mechanics, but gives them this lightning-fast pacing and a really sharp understanding of how human, or, well, animal, ego works. So we're going to break down exactly how this micro-narrative is built, beat by beat, and look at the true anatomy of a flawless bluff.
So I want to kick things off today with a question for you. What is the absolute best way to defeat a totally vain enemy? Like if you're completely outmatched physically, how do you actually pull off a win? Well, as you'll see, sometimes the absolute sharpest weapon you can use against a predator isn't teeth, and it's not claws. It's their own ego. Because when someone is just obsessed with outsmarting you, they usually completely blind themselves to reality. And that right there, that's the core engine driving the story we're exploring today.
So let's look at Section 1, The Predator's Return, establishing the stakes.
Any good story has got to establish the stakes right out of the gate, especially when you literally only have seconds to work with. We are dropped straight into a life-or-death situation, and what's really wild is just how incredibly efficient this blueprint is. I mean, look at this. First 5 seconds, we get the mortal threat. 5 to 15 seconds, the psychological bluff. 15 to 25, the climax in the bark. And those final 10 seconds, the moral resolution. It just perfectly builds and releases the tension across 4 really tight beats. There's zero wasted space here. It all kicks off with this opening line from the fox. So the scene starts with our hen just peacefully pecking at some grain, totally minding her own business. Suddenly, the fox shows up and says, "You can't escape this time." Now pay attention to those last 2 words, this time. In just a fraction of a second, the storyteller implies this whole rich history of rivalry between them. We don't even need a 10-minute prequel, because we instantly know the fox has tried this before, and he failed. But right now, in this exact moment, the physical danger to the hen is very real.
But the hen's comeback? It's just brilliant. Does she freak out? Does she try to make a run for it? Nope. She just says, "Are you sure, or will you be fooled again?" She instantly goes on the offensive. Instead of panicking over the physical threat, she goes right for the fox's pride. She reminds him that, hey, you messed up before. And by doing that, she completely shifts the battlefield. She moves it from a physical chase, which she'd definitely lose, to a mental chess match, which she absolutely knows she can win.
Which brings us to Section 2, Truth as a Deception, the psychological game.
Okay, so this next phase happens between the 5 and 15-second marks, and it's where this really cunning psychological trap gets set. The key here is how the fox reacts to the hen's challenge. His ego is totally bruised, right? So he immediately throws his guard up and says, "I'm not falling for anything today." He's projecting this absolute unwavering confidence. But psychologically, absolute certainty is exactly what makes you vulnerable. By basically declaring that he is impossible to trick, he closes his mind off to any actual new information. He's primed himself perfectly for a double bluff.
And here is the absolute masterpiece of the dialogue. The hen just casually replies, "Okay, then just ignore the hunter standing behind you." I absolutely love this. She uses the literal truth. There actually is a hunter right behind him, but because she drops it so nonchalantly, right after he promised he wouldn't be tricked, the fox immediately assumes she's manipulating him. She's literally weaponizing his own paranoia right back at him.
This is a perfect illustration of those classic fable tropes. On the left side, we've got the vain fox. He is completely ignoring his physical surroundings because he's relying totally on his own ego. He really thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And on the right, the clever hen. She is super observant of her environment, and she uses the truth as a weapon instead of making up a lie. It's blind arrogance going head-to-head with sharp observation. If we take a step back, the hen's survival tactic is actually this incredibly elegant 3-step process. Step 1, you question your opponent's intelligence, which makes them super defensive. Step 2, you point out a real, physical, looming danger. And Step 3, just stand back and let their own inflated ego dismiss that danger as a cheap trick. It's genius. She barely has to lift a finger because she lets her opponent's own psychology do all the heavy lifting for her.
All right, let's jump into the climax. Section 3, the unexpected climax, shattering the illusion. So from 15 to 25 seconds, the tension is completely maxed out, the bluff has been called, and now the illusion has to shatter. And the script does something so cool here. It cuts right through all that witty, fast-paced dialogue with the harsh, undeniable sound of reality, a dog's bark.
It's this auditory trigger that violently flips the power dynamic in an instant. The fox is standing there laughing, totally convinced he won the mental game, and then boom, reality bites. You don't even need words. The sound design alone tells you the trap just snapped shut.
And right here is where we see the complete collapse of the predator. Oh no, it was true. In a split second, the fox's panic sets in. His massive ego deflates like a balloon. All of that arrogant posturing just evaporates, and it leads to this delightfully cowardly exit where he runs off with his tail firmly between his legs. The physical threat to the hen is completely gone, not because she fought back physically, but because of the fox's own sudden, absolute terror.
Moving right along to Section 4, the final lesson. Wisdom for the audience. So let's slow things down a little bit for these final 10 seconds. The physical action is completely over, and the storyteller uses a really fascinating mechanic, breaking the fourth wall. Right at the very end, the hen actually turns and looks directly into the camera. She breaks the whole illusion of the story to speak straight to us, the viewers. It's a classic theater trick, sure, but using it in such a short, punchy script instantly elevates the whole thing from a simple animal gag into a genuine fable with a real lesson.
And here's the heavy truth bomb she drops on us. It's not always a lie. Sometimes it's necessary to recognize the truth. We really need to unpack that because it's genuinely brilliant life advice. Think about it. If you're too vain or too cynical and you're constantly assuming everyone is out to trick you, you're eventually going to become totally blind to obvious, genuine threats. The fox was so completely obsessed with not looking like a fool, he almost ended up as a hunter's trophy.
Right after delivering that profound moral, the original story hits us with this super clever, modern digital hook. Like if you want to see part 3. It's such a great bridge between ancient fable storytelling and modern-day audience engagement. Because the runtime is so tight, and it ends on this massive victory for the hen, the storyteller leaves the audience absolutely hooked and begging for the next chapter of this rivalry.
So, as we wrap up this explainer today, the main takeaway I want to leave you with is this final question. In a world completely full of tricks, manipulations, and bluffs, are you observant enough to recognize the simple truth? Look, it's really easy to get caught up in our own heads, constantly worrying about being outsmarted, exactly like the fox. But the hen proves that true cleverness isn't about running these overly complicated schemes. It's about staying grounded, paying attention to your reality, and knowing exactly when the truth is your greatest weapon. Keep that in mind the next time you find yourself in a battle of wits.